Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nerds Online. My name is Sean, and with me today, I'm very honored to have one of my best friends on the planet, co-founder of Kinda Funny, Nick Scarpino here. Hi,
Hello.
Nick.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining me. It means a
Thank you for
lot.
thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. So
Since
today,
you and I are the only two people who actually like this movie.
I know, right? I've never seen people so torn on a movie. Today, we're here to talk about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the new Zachary Snyder DC Comics film. And man, Nick, people hate this movie.
They really do, and it's really sad. And I understand why, right? This is a very important film. It's a very important film for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is, if you're a DC fanboy, I don't like using that term. If you're a fan of DC Comics or DC's animated properties, you want this to be a good movie, right? You want this to be as good as the Avengers. You want it to be as good as what Marvel's got to offer, because there is that sort of rivalry, but also because you want, at the end of the day, it's a Batman and Superman movie. So I get that it's going to be under a microscope, and it
Yeah.
very, very, very much is.
I think
But I,
it's a lot of it. Sorry, I think a lot of
that's,
it is like Batman and Superman are like the two biggest superheroes in the world, and up until a couple of years ago, a lot of people really didn't care about the Avengers. Not close to the amount of people that care about the Avengers now, but everybody cares about Batman and Superman.
yeah, I mean, I couldn't have cared less about Iron Man until Robert Downey Jr. made him awesome.
Yeah,
Because before
100%.
that, I just didn't really, I wasn't really into that character. And I always thought Thor and Captain America were sort of secondary characters in the Marvel universe because my only exposure to them really was like X-Men, right?
Yeah,
So X-Men I always thought of as sort of being the cream of the crop, and the Avengers were sort of some other like other boy band that wasn't as good as NSYNC. But I was wrong on that front. But they did a great job setting it up. But that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are having trouble with Batman v Superman is that instead of setting the films up so that the payoff is Batman v Superman is the payoff is the setup rather. So you're getting those. Are we going spoiler territory? What are we
yeah.
doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. So for anybody, that was like kind of a no spoilers so far, but from this point on, we're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie. If you haven't seen Batman v Superman, turn this off right now because I'm about to ruin your day. Or maybe you don't care, but still, go see the movie.
Yeah,
Don't listen to Rotten Tomato.
yeah. Go see the movie for Christ's sake. I mean, for no other reason. I appreciate that people really want to take these movies seriously, and we should.
Hmm.
Honestly, I mean, these are huge, big blockbuster movies, and you should, as a film goer and as a fan of cinema and a fan of movies in general, demand that we get good storytelling, right? And if you, when you don't, you should feel free to share that on social media because guess what? People are listening, and they're listening to
100%.
these complaints. And I guarantee when Justice League comes out, we're going to see some of the complaints that people have had rectified. But for me, at the same time, all it really needed to deliver was it needed to be fun, and I needed to kind of be smiling the entire time. And from the start of the movie, with the exception of when I actually thought the bats were lifting him up into the air, which I was like, oh God, and then it became a dream. I was like, oh, thank you for saying it was a dream.
Yeah, that
But
was the
I was
problem.
laughing. I was happy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a similar way. So first of all, when he's being lifted out, I was like, okay, how am I gonna defend this? Like,
Yeah,
I was like, Zach, you're not giving me a lot of wiggle room here, man. And like, that was a big complaint that a lot of my friends had that went and saw it. They were like, that scene was ridiculous and it set the pace poorly. Like, it set the tone of the movie poorly.
it was an unfortunate. I like where he was going with it, but it didn't quite come off as a dream, and I think they had to throw that. That may have been just a weird edit too, because
Yeah,
I like how it was sort of smash cut with him landing in Metropolis. Um, but other than that, I mean, the retelling of the origin story with Laura Cohen and the actor from I forget his name, the actor from Watchmen,
mm, mm.
was really cool. And again, they somehow managed. I've seen that how many times now,
Yeah,
and now
a million
this
times.
is the millionth time I've seen that, and it was brutally violent, like so over the top violent that it set the tone for how Batman was going to be. And every single time Batman was on screen, I was smiling.
Yeah,
I don't know
100%.
why. I was just like, this is awesome. Because at the end of the day, I'm way more of a Batman fan than I am a Superman fan.
I
So
am
all
too.
they really needed to do was nail Batman to get my vote, and they nailed him, in my opinion.
I
And
completely agree.
I am so eating my words because I was very much not against it, but I made fun of old Ben Affleck a little bit here and there for trying to take on this role, and he knocked it out of the fucking park, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And it was funny because I had that conversation with you at Comic Con this year where you're like, I don't know if Ben Affleck's gonna be a great Batman. I don't know if he could get big enough. Or like that was a lot of people were like, I don't know if Ben Affleck could get big enough. He got big enough.
He
He
got big
was
enough.
huge.
He got definitely big enough. Like that dude.
Huge.
So Henry Cavill looks big.
Yeah.
And then you see Ben Affleck, and you're like, that's like he makes Henry Cavill look like his little brother.
Yeah.
It's like the Hemsworth brothers, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Holy shit!
You know
I
what
don't know
they
how you
nail?
get that chest.
They nail. Well, you get that size with a lot of steroids and a lot of help, or at least HGH.
I
He
think they're
was
called
helped.
supplements, Sean.
Oh,
That's
the
what they're
supplements? Is that what the UFC
supplements.
is
Yeah.
calling them?
Yeah, that's what they call them.
I think they really go after the Frank Miller Batman from
Yeah,
like Dark Knight Returns, and you could see that in his body type. So
yeah.
I just reread that, and it looked like his like unbelievable wideness, and it is like perfect T Dark Knight Returns.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I really loved about it. And I can understand why hardcore fans would be at odds with themselves on this one because there were so many of those beautiful nods to the Dark Knight, so specifically Dark Knight Returns rather. Not the least of which was the suit,
Oh yeah.
the bat. You got some of the imagery from some of the covers was in there,
Oh yeah.
and then the end of the film was even kind of a play on the ending of Dark Knight
Yeah,
Returns,
where
right?
they reverse it. Yeah.
Where they reverse it though. So, and here's the other problem. Everyone's like, it was so stupid that we shouldn't have seen the dust come up. I'm like, spoilers. He's not fucking dead.
They're not gonna
There's
kill
no
Superman.
fucking way that was the last time we see Superman.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was funny too.
I was like, come on, guys, you're doing Justice League next. Like,
Yeah, come on now. I mean, it's actually funny. So I read Dark Knight Returns right before going into this, like the
okay.
day of. And there's scene for scene, certain scenes are identical all the way up until, except for he's like, people are going to be really upset. People are going to be upset about Batman's like moral code in this. And that was like the biggest complaint that I've seen from people. Because I went to comic book shops yesterday. Like I went to the 4 comic book shops in my area to talk about this movie and get like a little bit of insight with people like
Sure.
who are like die hard, who own comic book shops. So I mean, they don't really have much else going on. And a lot of them were like, Batman doesn't kill. And in this movie, Batman kills. Ben Affleck is directly responsible for the death of people.
Yeah, no.
Was that a problem for you?
At first, not really, honestly. I mean, at first I was thinking like maybe he was just maiming people like he was in the comic book because in Dark Knight Returns he kind of like paralyzes people.
He kills people in Dark Knight Returns too. People forgot.
Does he?
Yeah, he shoots somebody in the face in that movie.
Oh.
It's actually a scene for scene. The scene where Martha is taken in the movie, where the guy's with the flamethrower, and he's like, "I'll do it, man. I'll do it." And Batman throws the batarang and blows him up.
Uh-huh.
And he like pulls the other guy through the wall that has the machine gun. That scene is in Dark Knight Returns.
Dude,
except
first off, that fucking scene was also in RoboCop, and I love it. It was the guy was sitting by the wall, and I was like, "Are they gonna RoboCop him right now?" And he got fucking RoboCopped.
He pulled right through the wall.
Yeah, right through the wall, which is like. But see, I didn't mind the brutality because I think Batman should be brutal, right? I think he should be, I loved, and that was one of the things I loved about it was that they really nailed, for me, for the first time really ever on film, what Batman should move like, what he should look like, how he should feel, how people should react to him. Like, the tension that you got when that first shot where they go in, and when the cops go into the building to save the women, and they realize the cage is open, and the women slam it shut, and they're like, he's still here. And they're not talking about the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, you can't, that was a perfect moment, right? And you realize the cops are going to have to go up there, and Batman might be up there. And then he's like fucking hanging from the ceiling, like in the wall, and then scurries across the wall out the window. And you're like, what the fuck was that? That's Batman, right?
Yeah,
and I also love, they did a couple other amazing things with him, like, he just kind of appears places, like at the end in the cell. You're like, how did he do that? Who cares? He's Batman, right? I don't care. But I don't know. I mean, so for me, they nailed that, and I absolutely loved the relationship with him and Jeremy Irons. I loved that there was still respect there from from their old dynamic, but like I think one of the best things they did was it was it actually made me laugh out loud when Bruce Wayne wakes up in the morning and there's just a random woman next to him. We don't know. We don't really pay attention to her. We don't, they
don't even say anything about it.
They don't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next shot is Alfred coming to, whatever this amazing penthouse he has on this lake is.
Yeah.
It's like the boathouse, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't know. And Bruce Wayne prepares him a cup of coffee and he sets it down on the table.
Mm-hmm.
and Alfred picks it up, and that just perfectly shows that they're beyond that shit where Alfred's like, you should stop doing this,
Yep.
right? They're just beyond that shit at
Yeah.
this point. It's
He
been
doesn't have
20
to wear a tuxedo every day. Like it's
no,
like the same tuxedo every day.
yeah, he's coming in some dope ass like
Vest,
vest
looking
with
good.
we're looking great,
Yeah.
looking real great. Uh, and they're really just partners at this point, which is what Alfred and Bruce Wayne have always been. So I like that they dropped the sort of stuffy Alfred act, and I really like their dynamic, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the standalone Batman films.
Yeah, I liked how when you go into the Batcave and it's like Alfred is the one working on the Batsuit, the voice changer, and he's like testing it himself, and you're
Right.
like, that's cool, because it's
That's
like
cool.
it's not Bat. He's not out there like doing Master Wayne's laundry, and like I'm
Yeah,
sure he does do that. He's his butler or whatever, but he's the one like fixing the suit, which I
yeah.
thought was like that's fucking cool. I really liked their dynamic.
They did a great job with that
Yeah.
because I mean we've seen that in the comics, we've seen it in animated shows where Alfred is sort of like the mechanic and doing some of the technical work, but I love that they kind of, I mean, Alfred is sort of the mission control, right? He's the guy that's always at the helm. He's the guy that's
He flies the Batwing for him.
yeah, and he's like,
There's no
oh, right, I
autopilot.
forgot.
It's drone mode where he takes control of it. You're like,
Right, which is awesome, right? Um, I'm a little disappointed that they showed that scene at the end in that latest trailer
oh
where
yeah.
he's like, "There's combatants on the third floor. I'll drop you off in a second," because that scene would have stolen the show.
That would have been the
That would
best.
have been one.
It still probably is the best scene in the movie for me.
Oh, easily,
Yeah.
easily. Even the fight scene with, I mean, actually, this is the thing. The more I think about it, the more I really like some of these scenes, right? Even when he fights Superman,
Yeah.
it's not how you thought it was going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Superman is still Superman. He doesn't want to fight him. It's not, the reasons why, we'll get to sort of some of the gripes in a second.
Yeah.
Reasons why that scene was set up, I can understand why people might not like it or how it was set up. Because all the stuff in the third act with Lex Luthor was not as supported as I would have wanted it to have been.
Yeah.
Especially for a lot of people who are coming in fresh and don't really understand the dynamic with Darkseid and Apocalypse and really don't understand like what's going on with the bigger picture. They're going to be lost. And
Yeah.
that's
100%.
unfortunate. But like I said, that's what's crazy about this one is that I love that this is it's backward, right? Instead of the payoff, this is the setup for all the rest of the movies. What the fuck, Flash?
Oh, the Flash's scene where
Just
he. Yeah.
coming back in time and warning him, like
So
that's
here
awesome.
I actually had to message Greg about this because Greg's seen it 3 times now, so he has.
Yeah, saw it again in Vegas.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, Greg, what does he say? Because I couldn't hear him. And you really have to, because like when he showed up on screen, my theater stood up and gave him a standing ovation, and I couldn't hear what was going on.
Yeah.
And that was cool, but shut the fuck up. Flash is in this movie for like 1 second. I'm already hard. I want to know what's going on. I can't stand up right now.
That's yeah, that was a really cool moment, right? And that was like,
awesome.
And it's going to be awesome to see how that plays in with Justice League or whatever movie they're gonna bring that back with. I don't know. I think I'm just a lot more forgiving of these films as I get later on in the years than I would have been earlier, right? Like I had some issues with Star Wars as well, but at the end of the day, I was like, this was a fun movie. It delivered what I needed to deliver, and I'm just going to decide to like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick it apart. You can. It's easy. You can ask yourself what was Lex Luthor's motivation the entire time.
That is my whole thing, and we'll get to that in a minute. But real quick, because everybody's been asking, what does Flash say? And I DM'd Greg, and he says, this not exactly, but this is what Greg got from his 3 viewings. It's Lois. You were right about him. Am I too soon? Find us, Bruce. Is what he comes back and says to Bruce Wayne.
Right.
So that is almost like I wonder if they're talking about Darkseid. I wonder if they're talking about maybe possibly an Injustice storyline where they're saying it's Lois, you were right about him. Where like you were right, Bruce. If Superman wants to kill everybody on the planet, he can, and no one can stop him.
Right.
And so there's like a bunch of different and there's a couple of other nods to Injustice in that movie, which I thought was cool because that's like a really great storyline. But it's very exciting. I just like seeing Flash, and I agree. Like I was happy. I went to see that movie as like just a 24-year-old kid who likes Batman and Superman, and my best friend in the world, Fred, he went there as a critic, and he was like, I want to, I'm paying close attention because I know we're going to talk about this on the podcast. I just went in and I was like, I want to see what the fuck happens, and I liked the whole thing. There were problems.
There's a lot of problems with the film.
Oh,
Look,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of problems with any film. If you start breaking anything down, you're going to find problems. This one might be a little easier to do that with. I'm not going to lie, but it's because they had to cram so much stuff into it, right?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, that's their only. That's my only gripe is that I wish that they could have. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but I wish they could have done like a couple more movies to set this up in
100%.
this like a couple more Batman v Superman movies. Like this would have been a two-parter, would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think
and I would have watched
100%.
both. But I don't think they have time. Like Warner needs to play catch up. They need to establish these properties ASAP, and I think they did. I mean, the movie's making money.
Oh, it's making all the money. It's like
Yeah.
it might hit 300 million this weekend worldwide, which is fucking absurd.
And that's the thing. A lot of people are like, "Don't go see this movie. It's bad. Let's not reward these people." I'm like, but at the end of the day, you have to remember who this is more for, right? It's not for the 36-year-old guy. It's for kids. It's for people. Well, this might not be for kids actually.
No.
But it's for younger people who just kind of want to go and enjoy a movie, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are mad about that because there are older fans. There are a lot of people like me out there that are like, oh, I would have liked to have seen it. But I'm like, what do you want, right? Like, it was super violent. It was super ultra badass. Like, that was good. That was adult enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that a lot of the plot structure didn't really deliver. But at the same time, I think it delivered enough. Like, it delivered enough emotional moments for me to be like, this is good. I like this.
Yeah. I agree. And real quick, back to Batman killing.
Right.
That's nothing new. And I'm sorry, but if you go back and watch the theatrical movies of Batman, in 1989, Batman straight up shoots people with a machine gun, drops bombs on people, kills people. Go watch that movie. I recently watched that too. And in Returns, he kills people.
Yeah, in Returns, a lot of people forget he puts a bomb on a clown and throws him down a sewer.
Yeah, he dies. Guess what, guys? What do you think happens there? And even in the Nolan movies, he kills. Like, there are scenes in that movie where he is either directly responsible for someone's death or kills people. And it's not like Batman didn't come down and execute somebody. He didn't break someone's neck. He definitely killed those guys in the car, but when he blew their car up and then dragged it along the road and used it as a weapon to throw at
he killed those guys. He killed the guys at the end that were in the trucks with the machine guns, and he just lit them up with a Batwing.
Yeah, they're probably dead.
He kills a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah, definitely directly responsible for a lot of death.
You know what's funny is if it hadn't have been that intense, I probably wouldn't have noticed, right? Because everyone forgets at the end of Batman Begins, he kills Ra's al Ghul. He doesn't kill him, but he doesn't save him.
I don't have to save you.
I don't have to save you, right? Well, guess what?
You killed him.
Save someone and you choose not to. That's murder. You just iced someone.
Yeah,
right?
Go to court with that.
Theoretically, be tried for it and be convicted as a murderer, or at least criminally negligent behavior. But I get what they're saying. Is he was super over the top, but that's this universe. And guess what? We've seen all the other iterations of Batman. Yeah. And this is what I want to try to get across to people. Is we've seen Batman played so many times in so many different ways. This is the first time he's ultra brutal. This is the Dark Knight Returns Batman. So you got to take that. Maybe it took a little over the top potentially, but I didn't mind it.
I thought it was cool. And this is also a Batman whose Robin is dead.
Yeah.
Who has flirted, either been in retirement or he sees retirement was on the horizon at one point, and then this god lands on his planet. And I say, for the most part, he really only kills people when he's trying to get the kryptonite. And he's doing everything in his power to try to get the kryptonite. Actually, He blows those guys up with a grenade later in the movie too.
Yeah.
All right, so he's pretty brutal.
There's no real defending it.
And Zachary Snyder he released a comment on it because this has been the biggest point for a lot of people. A lot of hardcore fans were saying that this is bullshit. He said if Batman existed, people would die because of him, and there would be nothing he could do about it. If he was if a real Batman was out there, because this is supposed to be a more grounded universe, it's more unrealistic for Batman to not have killed anybody, at least by accident, or at least been responsible for their deaths. So.
Oh, of course, and that that goes without saying.
Yeah, 100%. And he throws somebody off a clock tower in Batman 1989. No one fucking blinks. Guess what? That guy's dead. He went down head first.
Yeah, he Yeah, in the 89 Batman, not only does he throw him up a clock tower, it's almost torture. Yeah. He tethers him to a weight.
Yeah.
And then watches as he falls. He could have helped him, by the way.
Could have saved a lot of
cord, maybe let him go. Now he iced him.
I'm sick of. I really don't like that argument because like I said, the most overwhelming thing in comic book shops that I've seen is like Batman never kills. I'm like, well, the movie's like in Batman Begins when he blows up the League of Assassins with the lights it on fire and then everybody in it dies. Like, is he that's not his fault because he's not in a bat costume at that time?
Yeah,
Like,
you think all those ninjas got out? They
yeah,
didn't get out. They all burned to death.
yeah. He was like, I will
Not
not
only
kill this
that,
one
but
man, but I will blow this place up and kill everybody in it.
like, how many times have you watched the UFC where someone gets a face kick and doesn't stand back up
Yeah.
afterward? Like, I mean, they're fine, but like that, a fucking strong. Every time he hits someone, he's risking killing someone.
Oh
I'm just
yeah,
throwing that out there in real life.
hundred
That
percent.
dude could hit the ground wrong and die. It happens all the time in street fights.
In
So,
in Arrow recently, I don't know if you're caught up in Arrow, but there's like
stop watching.
there's a scene in Arrow where Diggle hits a man in the face with a sledgehammer at a downward angle at point blank, like just like full extension, bam, and it goes like, put the cuffs on him. No, he's dead. You hit him in the head with a sledgehammer.
Don't waste the cuffs. We're gonna have to wipe the box of all this fucking blood.
Yeah, there's like, have you ever picked up a sledgehammer? But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, also Superman kills, by the way. I'm not just throwing that out there as well.
Yeah, he killed Zod.
Yeah, he snapped Zod's neck.
Yeah.
So that once they broke that, I think
that set the tone.
Everyone's going to have a negative reaction, but this is it. Like, I'm sorry, it had to happen at some point. So, like, we had to see this kind of a Batman at some point. I don't know that he necessarily needs to brutally be blowing people up or machine gunning them to death, but I'm not the one directing this movie, so
yeah.
There you go.
Speaking of the director, do you think Zack Snyder is the problem with these movies?
No.
Like, because people are like calling for him to not do any more of them.
No, I mean, you have to understand, like, from an extreme outsider's perspective, but just what little I know about how movies get made, this is an extraordinarily large process filled with hundreds of people, right? Hundreds, if not thousands of people that are working on an actual film. So, but when you have the people who are actually making the decisions, it's not just him. It's not like Zack Snyder gets to walk in every day and go, everything I want to do is here, right? He's got executive producers, studio heads, sometimes maybe even the talent, sometimes the writers, different writers. Everyone gets to chime in on this thing, and the job of the director most of the time is just to kind of corral all that toward one creative vision. The fact that he ended up getting what he got out of this is actually a pretty cool testament, given how much Warner Brother has on the line. You have to understand, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that are going into something that actually, not even more than that, is the fate of the studio might be riding on this franchise. Because if this doesn't do well for them, like, they don't have Harry Potter anymore. Well, I guess they have Harry Potter's coming back, but they don't really have a big cash cow, so they need this. So I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily his fault. I think we should give those guys kudos for actually, making something that's coherent and actually has emotional moments and cool action. You might not like his style. I think that's a lot of people have that criticism of him, which is that a lot of the action lacks sort of emotional ups and downs, right? It's all kind of just at 100%, like, distorted the entire time, right? And I could understand that, and I think that was a little bit of the issue in Man of Steel. It's just a little too much, right? I think they could have edited a little bit of the action out and pasted a little bit better, and we would have gotten that actual emotional punch when Wonder Woman lands. Which by the way, when she landed, a lot of people in my theater flipped.
Yeah. I have another standing ovation moment where I'm like, everybody sit the fuck down. I'm excited too, but I want to see what's going on. No,
right.
And so, like, I watched Man of Steel, and I hated that movie. I almost see no redeeming quality in that movie. And, people can not like that movie or like that movie.
Sure.
Whatever. I think if you went and you sat through Man of Steel, you deserve to go watch Batman vs. Superman.
I see. That's the thing. I liked Man of Steel. I didn't love it. I don't crave watching it again. I've watched it a couple times since just to see if my opinion's changed. And it really hasn't. It's got a lot of great setup and a lot of great moments. And it does have, like, when the first time you see him fly is an amazing, amazing moment. And it's hilarious because we've seen that before twice now, but it doesn't matter. Like, this, he somehow managed to make it fresh. But I think also Zack Snyder is a very capable filmmaker. I really do. Like, everything with Batman I loved. All the way it was shot was beautiful. So his DP did a phenomenal job with that. I don't know. I just think that, like, a lot of it comes down to story, and really the only problem they have is that they have to unfortunately cram all the characters into it. I really want to see what happens with the next one if he's helming that. Is he helming Justice League?
I don't know.
I don't know if he's doing the Batman films.
No, I think Ben Affleck's doing the Batman films. I think he's directing those. They've hinted that him and Jeff Johns are going to be working on it.
That's awesome.
And that would be amazing. Because like I said, their Batman is. Sorry, my cat just jumped up for people.
That's okay.
It is what it is. My cat likes to sit on my lap. Say hi, everybody. Um, so I have, and a lot of people say that the first act is like all over the place and like people couldn't follow it. I didn't have that problem. I thought the first act did it jump around a little bit, I guess, but I didn't really have that problem. Man of Steel does the exact same thing though.
Yeah,
It's
Man of
kind of
Steel
his
does it actually
style.
worse.
Yeah,
And just because you're going back and forth between him as a kid. But I mean, it's that there's an effort being made to actually have an emotional connection with these characters, which is good. Which is not something you often can really find when you're reading a comic book. But this is one thing I thought of when I walked away from the movie. I was like, if I had read that, I would have liked that storyline. If that had been a trade, just another comic book that I was reading, I think I would have been into that, and I think I would have read it, and I think I would have liked it.
yeah.
It really did play like a comic book, where it jumped around a lot, and they ran. It wasn't sort of the screenwriting logic that you have to have in there. It was more like comic book logic,
It
where we
did
can.
feel a lot like a comic book. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of setup for some of the things that you needed, right? There wasn't a lot of setup for Wonder Woman. But then this is the other thing I keep hearing people complain about, like, oh, no one's going to know who Wonder Woman is. No one's going to know who Wonder Woman is. You know who Wonder Woman is.
She's like the third most famous superhero on the planet.
Yeah, we know who she is, right? And so, a while with Spider-Man, and this argument always comes up, why do we need to see the origin story again? Why do we need to see the origin story? And then lo and behold, we get a superhero movie where the studio has the balls to be like, you know what, just throw her in there. We're not going to
Explain her.
we don't need to explain her because she's Wonder Woman. We'll take it for granted that people know who Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are at this point, right? And the other things, guess what? They don't need to set up the Flash and Aquaman because that's not the point. The point was just to tease them out and to tell you that this is how Batman came across. Now, granted, it wasn't the most genius way of introducing those characters via an email, but
Yeah.
that could have been done. That could have maybe been handled a little bit better. But the Flash moment was awesome.
I
When we see
really
him
did
in
like
in
it. I would have
Superman.
liked it better if it was I would have liked it better if it was like an extra credit scene because it really was like just like in the middle of the movie and then it was like gone. But I
Oh, no, I'm
guess
talking about like where we
where
actually
he's in
see
the
Ezra
store.
Miller in the store. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that was
So I was
cool.
like, that's pretty cool. And then they got the Aquaman shot, and I was like, I can't defend this shot.
Yeah, that was bad, man.
I was
There's a
watching that.
couple of there was a couple cringeworthy moments in that movie.
The two most notable moments that I would have liked to have seen edited out would have been when he's lifted up by the bats
Mm.
because that scene was so real for me that when it starts to happen, it took me out of the movie immediately because I was like, whoa, what the fuck is going on, right? Because you don't get that he's dreaming because
No.
that whole setup was beautiful, right? We go straight from him in the over the like not wanting to go to his parents' funeral, running through the forest, and then he goes down there, and that's the first time he sees the Batcave. They could have just ended it there, and then smash cut to him landing in Metropolis and being scared there, right? Seeing something else, the only other thing in his life that's terrified him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is this god that's in the sky destroying this other city, which randomly is across the bay from Gotham, which is yet another of those things that I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Yeah,
I don't remember them being that close together, and
they're
it's a little
not.
weird that if Superman was right next door to Batman and he wouldn't have stopped him at this point, like
I
he would have
completely agree with you.
stopped him.
That
Um,
was a weird choice.
it was a strange choice. I get it. I understand that in order to have the characters. I mean, see, again, this is a logistical choice, right? In order to have the characters interact that much with each other, they have to be close to each other. Because
Mm-hmm.
Batman can't fly at the speed of fucking sound
No.
or light or whatever the hell, however fast Superman flies. So I get that they had to make some of these concessions. And then again, now people are giving them shit for fighting in an abandoned island, which, I mean, you live in New York. Are there any abandoned islands out there?
No.
Yeah, real estate's probably going for a
Yeah.
prime market right now. But, so everyone gave him shit for destroying the city and killing all those people in Superman. So they go onto an abandoned island. And everyone's like, where is there an abandoned island? I'm like, come on, guys, come on.
Work with us.
I just watched Justice League War, right? And it's
Oh,
like,
I did too.
I've seen it before. For some reason it popped up on Netflix, and I'm like, I love this movie. But if I wanted to, I could sit here and pick it apart. I could sit here and say, where's the United States military the entire time this happened?
Why didn't
Where,
they introduce Wonder Woman better? They just show her in her costume. We're supposed to know who she is. I had the
right?
same. I was like, man, people would have hated this shit if it was in real life.
Oh my God, of course, right? She's just standing outside of the White House, and then
Yeah.
goes in and it's like,
If they respect you to know what's going on, you're going to see a DC movie, and they're
right.
like, oh, you're going to assume that you know who the third fucking most popular character in the world is.
I know, and that's the thing. I understand Marvel had to do it
Yeah.
because I don't know shit about Captain America. And I don't care about Captain America. I still don't care about Captain America, right? Not nearly
Not
as
really.
much as I care about Batman. Um, but that's just the strength of that character. Batman is just a way more stronger character. He's way more iconic than pretty much anything that Marvel has. And people can argue that to the day, till they're blue in the face, but
Yeah, but it can't.
they can't. Batman's like always the number one search on like Google like every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have those trends that come through. So, um, he is the icon of comic books. I don't think you necessarily need to spend an entire movie setting him up. And I don't think you necessarily need to sit here and compare him to the Nolan universe because
Different.
it's
It's
just
just
different,
different.
man. We already had that,
Yeah.
right? If you really liked that, you can't blame Zack Snyder. You can't blame Warner Brothers. You can blame maybe Christian Bale and Chris Nolan for doing 3 awesome movies and going, you know what? We did it. We don't necessarily need to do these anymore. Some better than others, the movies, but the trilogy as a whole, I think, is a phenomenal accomplishment. And they walked away and they had the balls to be like, you know what? We don't need the
We're
money.
done. Yeah.
We're done. We did it. Nolan dropped the mic and
That was
walked away.
impressive. It was cool the way they did. I always look back and I'm like, man, they could have made a fourth one real easy.
Oh, they could have
They
easily
could
made
have
a fourth
cashed in
one
on that day.
Yeah, they still could actually. They could still cash in within that universe. And that's the other thing is like they could do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, that would
We live in
confuse
an
people.
age where you can communicate very easily with the audience and say, "Hey, we're doing an offshoot one-off where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing Batman now."
Yeah.
Or he's playing
The
Nightwing, or
internet
he's playing
would
Robin,
go
right?
nuts.
It'd go fucking crazy. But at the same time, we're gonna get standalone. We have already gotten standalone Wolverine movies, right?
Yeah.
We got a Deadpool movie. We're gonna start seeing a shit ton of rated R Wolverine movies come out. And guess what? At some point, I hate to say it, guys, Hugh Jackman is going to be way too old to play this role, and they're
In
going to
like
recast
2
him as someone
years.
new. Yeah, he doesn't want to play it anymore. He's getting to that point where he's like, I'm getting a little too old to play this character.
Yeah. I can't
It's
keep
like,
all the HGH in anymore,
yeah,
guys.
it's literally every time I touch a wall, HGH comes out and it's transparent.
Looking like
Uh,
this is literally killing me.
it's killing my heart. It's killing my heart. So, um, change is good. I think I know a lot of people are going to put in the comments on this video are probably going to be tearing me apart for being
But who
too forgiving of.
cares?
But the fact of the matter is, like, the movie is not without its faults. I'm not trying to come to
Yeah,
defend some
let's
of the
talk about
faults.
some of them now. What didn't you like about this movie?
Well, I didn't specifically like. I didn't quite get what Lex Luthor's motivations were. I thought Jesse Eisenberg did a great job in the first half of the film, and then in the latter half, it kind of pushed it a little too far into the absurd for me with the kidnapping of Martha. And I understand why they did it. And actually, I'm one of the only people who actually likes the moment where he said, "Wait, why did you say that name?" and screams at him.
See, I hate that, but
See,
yeah.
I understand why people didn't like it. It was a little on the nose. It was a little too forced, but I liked that they had a connection. I liked that Batman was in control of Superman's fate at that moment. But yeah, Lex Luthor became a kind of maniac, and that makes sense if he was expecting Darkseid to come through the door at any given moment, right?
Yeah.
But like for a man who's that smart, I always like Lex Luthor. I like my Lex Luthor to be the guy that gets away. I always like my Lex Luthor to be like the one behind the plot, but no one can prove it because he's a super genius.
Yeah, and that's what he
So
is.
would a super genius kidnap Superman's mom? Is that something you wanted Superman to know that you did? Hey, yo, I'm gonna light your mom on fire if you don't do what I want. But you say that to a man who is indestructible, and you
I
killed him
literally
right between
looked
his
up,
legs.
and there's like
Yeah,
lasers in his eyes.
so I understand that, but I want them to make Lex. I always want someone to. I want them to make Lex the intellectual equivalent to Superman's strength. That's
Yes.
always when that character is at his best, right? Where he can't be beat because he's too smart to be beat. He outsmarts the jock. He outsmarts the guy who just punches harder whenever he comes to a problem, right? Then you have Bruce Wayne, who is the world's greatest detective, who also has to outsmart them. So when you combine his genius with Superman's brawn, you've got this unstoppable fighting team, which is what I was sort of hoping the movie would climax to, and it didn't quite come through on that front. Um, but then they gave me the scene that I really wanted to see, which was Batman just kind of appearing in the cell, and I was like, all right, we got back.
Sold.
And branding the wall,
Yeah.
so Lex Luthor just has to stare at the bat symbol for for his entire
Paris
car trip,
sentence.
which
Yeah,
I thought was.
I
But they
like that a
needed to see
lot.
it. They really realistically needed it. Greg told me this, and it really resonated. They needed to seed out that he was working for Darkseid, and they needed to set up Darkseid a little bit better. Because him just screaming at the end, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming, and then seeing the painting, which I loved, of Superman. You know, Superman being the angel, but it's flipped now. And Darkseid, the devil, is coming from space to kill everyone on our planet. I thought that was cool. But I know a lot about
DC.
that world, and so that's where we started to skate that balance of like, how much should you expect the audience to know? I think you should, at this point, expect the audience to probably know who Wonder Woman is, Batman, Superman, and Flash to a certain degree without having to necessarily set him up, and Green Lantern, because we already had the Green Lantern movie. I don't know how many people saw that, but I don't necessarily expect them to know who Darkseid is. In fact, that's probably a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
it's too much.
You're asking
we
a
needed to set
little bit
that
much.
up a little bit. And there were just a few edits in the film that I thought took you out of it. One was with the bats. The other one was with when Holly Hunter was looking at the jar of like peach tea for like 50 minutes and having like a stroke.
I almost forgot about that scene.
Happening, and then Superman looks over and realizes the chair's about to explode, which I thought was cool because you see him just standing there in the explosion, like sad.
Yeah.
But before that would have been so much cooler if she just kind of looks down and turned the jar, and then Superman looked at her and then looked at the chair, and then boom, it's done. But I also didn't quite understand why that scene happened in the film, because it immediately came out that the person that blew up the Senate was not Superman.
Yeah.
Right? So I understand that it was supposed to make people more scared of him, but wouldn't that endear people to him, right? That someone tried to kill him?
Yeah.
That a terrorist, like, one of his victims who was like this crazy terrorist went into the Senate hearing and blew all of them up. Wouldn't we be like, oh, that sucks for Superman. I hope he's okay. Like, I didn't quite understand why a lot of that stuff was happening. But, then you get the good parts, which I actually, you go back and I really liked the dynamic between Ben Affleck and
Jeremy Irons.
No, Gal Gadot. I was going to say.
Gal Gadot. Oh yeah, that was good too.
Or Gadot. I never know how to say her last name. Is it Gadot? I think
Wonder
it's Gadot.
Woman.
Wonder Woman. Oh, that was cool. And everyone's like, a lot of people, a lot of comments I'm reading, I'm like, oh, we could. Who was she? Where did she come from? Like, well, we're going to get that.
Yeah.
But all you need to know is she's Wonder Woman and she's looking for something. Granted, it's a photo that exists in the digital realm and can be copied infinitely, so you're never really going to get that photo back. Spoilers. But so I thought the MacGuffin, the sort of thing she was after, was a little bit thin. I think she could have been. I would have liked it if she were also on the trail of what was happening, and they had to team up together to potentially fight Superman, and then all three of them had to team up together to fight Doomsday, which was, again, another one of those, like, interesting. You're in a ship that can give you all the knowledge of thousands of planets, the cosmos, for all intents and purposes. How did you wind up getting to the place where you're like, I'm going to splice my DNA in with Zod and make Doomsday? How did you get there? I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and my brain is like, Lex was in there and he's like, show me everything. And then the next words out of his mouth were, show me how to kill Superman, or something like that. Or like, what are Kryptonians afraid of? Or, yada, like, he must have asked a very specific question, like, how do you stop this? But that was my whole question, like, yeah, like, why did he do that? I don't understand, like, he just really doesn't like Superman, so he's willing to bring something way worse than Superman onto the planet to kill Superman? Like, you have way worse problems then, sir.
Yeah, I know, and that was a big deal for me, which was, the logic really broke down for the end there, which was, why would you, if you're going to make something that kills Superman to pave the way for Darkseid, well, what the fuck are you going to do with that thing that killed Superman? Yeah. You can't ask him to go to a Starbucks and hang out for the next year while Darkseid prepares his envoy to come. Yeah. That thing's going to tear apart the world.
Destroy the planet. Yeah.
It's going to destroy the planet. And it would have just kept getting bigger and crazier and
evolving and becoming more and more unkillable.
So that kind of was a little disappointing. And that final fight scene I liked, but I thought that, it was a little too much. It was a little... All the fight scenes ended up... Well, actually, not all the fight scenes. There was just that kind of last fight scene. I was getting a little exhausted watching it. Like, fuck, this is a lot of crazy action going on.
Batman just hid for most of it. He was like,
I would have... But I don't like that.
I don't have a game
Batman was like, I'm just going to do what Batman does, and hide in the shadows and wait for my opportunity to strike, which is what he did.
I just thought... I loved that, because he was like, well, fuck that. I don't have a game... I wasn't prepared for. I have one grenade.
Right.
Like, I don't. Right. I'm gonna go hide.
Oh man, there was a part of me that, after the Aquaman scene, I was like, oh god, please don't let Aquaman be in that water.
Oh yeah.
Spear. I was like, please don't let her go into that water and see Aquaman. And he's like, here you go. I found it for you.
This
That
fish told me.
was, yeah, this fish was like, they were talking about gossip and just, they told me about this crystal spear. Um,
He posted it on Flipper. It's like Twitter, but
yeah, it's
don't get it.
um, so, overall, you could really pick this film apart. There's a lot of issues that it has. Uh, but the question you have to ask yourself is, did it hinder the ride or did you still have fun? And I still had fun, but I can understand if it hindered it for you. I can understand if you were like sort of stumbled because of the flaws in logic and it took you out of the realism or it took you out of the world of the film. I get that completely. But for me, I just kind of said, you know what? Whatever. I'm going to enjoy this because at the end of the day, I'm watching fucking Batman on screen.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's not about Batman trying to sneak back into a city that's been being held hostage by Bane for like 8 months straight.
I don't know. He also got a spine broken, and he decided it would be cool if he drew the bat signal in gasoline while people were being raped and murdered behind him.
Yeah,
and then
he took that
light it
time
up.
to do that,
He was like,
which was cool.
"This is gonna be rad."
You're gonna be scared of this one.
Yeah.
Which he was, but
I mean,
and that's the thing. A lot of people point back to the trilogy, the Nolan trilogy. I was like, there was a few points in those movies where I was like, what the
still
fuck
think
is happening?
Rises is a legitimately bad film. Like, I think that movie is. I think Batman vs Superman is definitely better than that.
I
Personally.
think you could make an argument for that easily. Yeah. I think that Rises was. I think it started off soundly. I think Nolan just. I don't think Nolan ever really nailed Batman. And
Yeah.
That was my.
It crushed the villains.
Great villains. The Dark Knight, is arguably one of my favorite movies of all time. It's probably one of the best movies ever made of all time. But at the same time, that didn't necessarily need to have Batman in it. That's a Joker movie.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And it really is on the strengths of Joker or Heath Ledger's performance as Joker. But let's think about some of the things that happen in that movie, right? Like, remember the time when Rachel Dawes is falling out of a building and Batman grabs her and does nothing, and they just fall onto a fucking cab, and she's like, let's not do that again. The impact of which would have sent all of their bones through their fucking back.
Yep.
And just either paralyzed them or basically shot their brains out of their assholes.
They would have been mush when they hit the ground.
Like, well, his cape sort of slowed him down. I'm like, that's not, no, I'm sorry.
That's not how physics works. I'm sorry.
Physics works. It was like a fucking 40-story building.
Yeah. You're dead. I've seen the building that they shot that scene in is the building my father works in.
Yeah.
And I've seen that building in real life, and you can look up and you're like, wow, that's really big.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's those moments in those movies where they just didn't really work for me. And then there's some other stuff. My biggest gripes with the Nolan trilogy is I think the one thing that Zack Snyder ended up doing wonderfully in this, which is just that when Batman fights, I hate when you can, and pay special attention to this when you go back and watch those movies, just look behind him, at the dudes behind him who are pointing fully automatic machine guns at him and just doing this thing so they look kind of busy until Batman can get over to them to beat their ass. That's poor. That's bad. I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's just not, that is not a great way for Batman to move. And every single time you see Batman in a new scene, he just walks into the scene. You're like, no, Batman should be hanging from the ceiling. He should be in the shadows. You should never see him. Like, you should never have time to actually, like, focus on that suit, let alone be able to, like, watch him sort of slowly moving along and trying to help move his neck. So I think that Snyder did, I think he did Batman a solid in this by just showing how fucking awesome it can be for a guy that size who can move that well to just put people's heads to the goddamn ground.
Yeah.
Which was dope.
And like his fighting in the Dark Knight trilogy is always like very reactionary. Like Christian Bale's always like blocking and like here and like he's never like it almost feels like he's never on the offensive. This Batman just beats the shit out of you and you don't get to attack him for the most part because he'll just punch you through the ground.
Exactly, and see that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's way better.
If you were looking at let's put it this way: if you're trying to fight like a group of 10 guys that have machine guns, you better goddamn have a plan. That plan better involve a really good offense because if you're playing defense the entire time, they're going to shoot you.
Yeah.
You're dead. And I also like that he did get shot in this movie. A lot.
Yep.
But guess what? That's why he wears a cowl. Right?
Yeah, that's why he has the armor on. And he doesn't need to.
He's got the armor on.
And I don't know, he's not wearing hockey pads.
Well, the only thing I don't like is that he got stabbed in the shoulder, which was, I'm like, what's the point of this suit if a knife can go through it? Which was also my biggest gripe with Batman's suit, which is like, he's like, yeah, this is an awesome suit with all this armor. And then a fucking switchblade goes through it and like takes him out of the game completely, and then he gets mauled over by a Rottweiler. And it's like, dude, all right, come on.
Yeah, and like
You just took down 40 SWAT guys.
you said it the best a long time ago, and I don't know if you even remember saying this, where you said you like Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy, obviously, because he's cool, but like Batman's cooler when he doesn't need the mechanical suit. Like he's cooler when he doesn't need to have a fully armored Batman suit. Which like when he's fighting Superman, it makes sense, but like for fighting thugs, and like it's cooler because he doesn't get hit like that because he's fucking Batman. And he's all over the place, and like I agree with that completely. Like he does get hit in the fight scenes, and the cape does save him, but like it doesn't look like. I always thought the Batsuit for the Dark Knight Return, or like the Dark Knight trilogy, was stupid looking. Like it was cool, but it was like too mechanical, and this one just looks way cooler. This one's scary. This one's like legitimately scary.
It is. I mean, it looks like he's wearing sort of the old school Kevlar suit, right? Or the microfiber that's Kevlar. You've got the cape that's like fire retardant and can take bullets. I thought it was cool, man. I think that's exactly what it needs to be. But also, it's not. It's a tool in his arsenal, right? And that's why I liked it. Was because he knows how to use that tool, and we see that in the choreography. We see that he knows there's people behind him, but he knows they only have knives, right? Or like that part you see in the trailer if you haven't seen the movie where the knife comes down and just like sparks off of his suit, and then that guy just gets handled.
Yeah,
like it's awesome, and that's a tool that he relies on. But also he has other tools like the things that short out the guns, and he's going to attack these people, right? And I love that part where the guys, there's still like one or two guys that are still looking down to see what the hell is down there that shot him, and Batman's above him, and so he's constantly keeping people like wondering what's going on. He's striking, like, to put it in UFC terms, like he's striking different angles, right? He's not coming on people dead on. He's sidestepping. He's trying to come from a different angle that you're not expecting him, and that works. We've seen it working in fighting, and we see it working to heighten the dramatic tension in some of these fight scenes.
Yeah, his misdirection is great. It's people
awesome.
don't know what's going on, and the Superman fight scene, we kind of glanced over that. Is awesome. Like when he fights Superman, it is. There's my only gripe with it, and I'm like really picking, is like he did the exact same move twice, and Superman fell for it both times, where he gets shot with a grenade both times. Because like when he's in the bathroom and he's reloading, and like Superman's like, I'm just gonna fly really fast. Like not fast enough, I guess, and he gets hit with it again. And like the scene where Batman's punching him and it's starting to wear off, and then it's like dink, 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 and then he's like not moving, and it's like, it's like really, it's a great scene.
It was a great scene, and it was also a great scene because now granted Superman wasn't trying his hardest. I think Superman probably could have taken him. But let's just throw it out there, just because there is no such thing as a fair fight, right? Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and in this one, Superman necessarily didn't want to fight, but on the official scoreboard,
Batman won.
Superman 0. Throwing it out there.
It's 100. Yeah, you're right. This is pretty much the only time that Batman ever actually beats Superman. And like, if Superman, spoilers, we already said that you shouldn't be at this point if you haven't seen it. If Batman wanted to kill his ass, he'd be dead. Because he had that spear right on him. And that is my other thing that I didn't like was how quickly Batman flipped sides. Like, it was like no real conversation there. It was just like, Martha, all right, we're cool, dude. You said the password. Like, I'm not going to kill you now.
Yeah, that could have been set up. And I think they underutilized Lois in that scene.
Yes,
right?
I completely agree.
I feel like Lois should have saved him. I feel like Lois could have walked in and stopped Batman by saying, like, I am a person who is trusted by the public, and I love this person, and I trust him, and you're misjudging him, and they've got his mom, and you need to help him.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like that would have, they could have seeded out a little bit too that Batman was. I mean, it's hard though because in order to get Batman to that point where he wanted to kill Superman, he had to be like 100% jacked out. Sure, he had to be like, "Dude, I am fucking sure this is the right thing to do. This guy's dead. I'm going to kill him."
And that's what I like. I feel like they did do a good job of selling Bruce Wayne's motivation for wanting Superman dead. And that whole scene in the beginning is like it. They think like that almost like 9/11-esque scene where he's driving through Metropolis in the beginning and it's just going to shit, and he runs directly into the cloud of smoke. And he picks up that little girl, and he's like, "We're going to get you back to your mommy. Where's your mommy?" And she points at the building. And you're like, and then like Batman decides right there, this motherfucker's dead.
Yeah,
this guy can end the planet. I'm going to kill him. And he says it to Jeffrey, or to Alfred, where he's like, if there's even a 1% chance that we think that he'll turn, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Yeah.
And I thought like that, that sent chills down my spine. I was like, that was a moment that sent chills. And then later on when Batman hits Superman with the car by accident, and then he rushes through something, it's like, the Bat's dead. Bury him. This is your only warning, and flies away. You're like, damn.
Dude, that scene was awesome. I saw it in the trailers, and I was like, it just came out of nowhere. That scene was another one of those scenes, though, that I think went on a little too long. It's that sort of like, you get exhausted watching some of the action sequences in this film, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, this is really cool, and then it's just again at 100% the whole time, and your brain just starts to kind of get numb to it after a while. But what I do like, again, they made some great choices in this. I love the Batmobile. I like that it was like a fucking dune buggy on cocaine. You know what I mean? Like it didn't sound like the Tumbler. It wasn't growling at you the
No.
entire time. It was like a high pitched like
Mm-hmm.
whining sound
It was a
as it
cool
was tearing
Batmobile.
around corners. Yeah, and I loved the Batwing too. I thought the Batwing was pretty cool.
I like that we got to see the Batwing. Like we
Yeah,
legit like that was really I did enjoy the Batwing a lot. I like pretty much everything that had to do with Batman.
yeah,
My
I did too.
biggest problems with the movie were like I think Doomsday they wasted a cool character and they rushed him and it didn't make any sense and like Lex's motivation didn't make any sense at all. I like and like there
Yeah,
are like like we're not saying to go out like no we're saying go out and see this movie but it's not a perfect film and we
no,
know like if people are freaking out saying it's the worst film ever I don't think it's that either. But like on Rotten Tomatoes right now it has a 36%, and that's like lower than The Room, which is like widely considered to be the worst movie of all time, and Superman Returns, which has a 70%. And this movie is definitely better than Superman Returns. This movie is better
yeah.
than
I
a
mean,
lot of movies.
that's the thing. Superman Returns wasn't necessarily a bad film, but it unfortunately did the one cardinal sin of filmmaking that I can't really, get beyond, which is that at moments I was bored with a
Yeah.
Superman movie, right? Because there wasn't really a lot going on, right? And that's the problem. When you fight Lex Luthor one on one, why is that compelling, right? So
Hmm.
what you really need to do with Lex Luthor is he has to be hatching grand plot behind the scenes and ultimately orchestrating Superman or Batman's or the Justice League's demise, right? And that's what I thought they were going to do in this one. I was like, that's cool because all they need to do is have Lex Luthor be the mastermind and have Doomsday be the thing that's going to actually kill him. But Superman and Batman can't prove that it was Lex unless Lex actually calls him there and says, I kidnapped your mom and you got to go kill Batman for me because I'm out of my fucking gourd right now. And you're
Yeah.
like, well,
He was almost like the Riddler. It
he
was like
was a
he was
little. A
like
lot of people
so
call him the poor man's Joker,
yeah.
which is weird.
I
Um,
but I think this movie had moments. People said the movie didn't have any moments. I think that there's a like the scene at the end where Lex gets his head shaved. I thought that was like like I was like, "Oh, cool. That was cool for me." Like this movie does have moments where I was like legitimately excited. I was like,
me
"This
too.
is cool." Like the when the Trinity is on screen and like Wonder Woman comes out and saves him and then Superman lands and they're like and she like pulls out her sword and you're like,
Yeah,
"This is," and like when she gets hit by Doomsday and she smiles
yeah, I
like her
love that.
and she like comes in and she like like she's having fun and you're like
Yeah,
and they're like there's no arc, there's no progression. Like I learned a lot about Wonder Woman in that scene. I don't know what you were thinking. Like I don't know what you guys saw.
I mean, that's the thing. She's a side character, and that's what I think a lot of people are reacting to, right? Like, this is not traditional screenplay writing. This is not traditional Hollywood storytelling. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of shoehorned in, and rightfully so, people are having a negative reaction to it. But I felt like her character was pretty well set up for this story arc,
Yeah.
right? We saw her. She doesn't want to join the action. She just wants to be by herself, and then realizes no, she needs to be in the fight. Those are the beats of her story, right?
Yeah.
She just needs to go help these people out because
They
it's the
need
right
her
thing to
help.
do.
Yeah.
They need her
And
help,
she can be
and she can do
assistance.
it.
Yeah.
So I really liked that, but yeah, I mean, there's some unforgivable stuff in this movie that you just can't get beyond. It sucks. But I always talk about Interstellar, how much I love that film, and the last 30 minutes of it are like a bad acid trip.
Mhm.
But it's fine. That's the way that movie ended, and that's the way it happened. But it didn't take away those other amazing moments where I literally wept when like he was leaving the farmhouse and she finally realized she needed to say bye to her dad because it might be the last time she sees him. Meanwhile, I'm watching it with my wife who's crying her eyes out because she misses her dad because we never get to see him too. I'm like, these are amazing emotional moments. And then you get to this fucking like Alice in Wonderland bookshelf scene at the end. You're like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't care. The rest of the movie was great, and this is the ending, and that okay. I kind of get where he was going for, and I'm a smart enough guy to kind of extrapolate some stuff. So here we go. Great, Interstellar, great fucking film.
Yeah.
With Batman, you got to forgive a lot more, unfortunately. But at least we didn't see a plot that we've seen before
That's a
in a
good point.
movie, which we saw in Star Wars, which was the exact same fucking movie as A New Hope, and everyone just kind of glossed over that. They were like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, not whatever. Like, you
That's a
guys can't
problem.
have it both ways. If you want something new, you have to accept something new. Now, granted, again, it was not made perfectly, and it was nowhere close to perfect. But it's definitely not a 36 in any way, shape, or the imagination.
No, I don't
For
I don't
Christ's sake, I mean, just watching Ben Affleck do fucking pull-ups was
that
worth the
was at
price
least
of
40.
admission.
Yeah. Two quick things and then we'll let you get out of here. Um Actually, I'll do three quick things. The sequence where Batman is it's clearly a dream sequence or a vision sequence of any type where he's like shooting people with a gun and like in the
Right.
desert, like it's like Mad Max but with a Batman.
Right.
Did that do it? Like, was that a problem for you? Because that was another one of those scenes where fucking people are losing their minds. I didn't
Yeah.
really like it. I didn't
I
get it.
It was a weird scene. It didn't really work for me. I didn't understand what was going on. I think that it's one of those where we might look back on that one and say, "Oh, that was really cool. They put that in there."
Yeah, I
But
agree
yeah,
with that.
it's sort of just.
Doesn't fit yet.
It was a little weird, also because he wakes up from a dream and then sees Flash and then wakes up from a dream, and you're like, "Oh,
What the fuck
okay,
is going on? Yeah.
what is going on?" But it'll probably make sense eventually. And my guess is it's more of a vision, less of a dream, right? Like someone's projecting that into the past into him, so he understands that he needs to get the team together right now
Yeah.
because something's coming,
Something's coming.
and
It's
he
bad.
knows it's coming, and he doesn't know what it is, but it's got a giant Omega sign that it burns into the fucking scorched earth,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's dangerous and that's bad. Let me grab my charger real quick. I'm gonna be my computer's about to die.
No problem. No problem.
1 second.
All right. So back to the thing.
Yeah.
So the killing Superman was weird too.
It was a little weird. I thought it was a little unnecessary.
Me too.
Honestly.
It also didn't make any sense how he could barely swim up the thing with the spear because the kryptonite was killing him.
Right.
But then when he could just fly with it, no, like he was struggling, but he was fine. It was like like when you tweak your knee, but you're like, I'll finish the run anyway. And then
Right.
he can stab Doomsday and then push it through. Like I was like, that has to be like a lot of strength there. You are definitely still Superman right now with that kryptonite 3 inches away from you.
Yeah, this is my problem with Superman in general. Is just inevitably with every Superman thing I've ever watched. He beats whatever situation by just punching harder.
Yep.
And I can't stand it. Like I just it's not that it's in this film I was like whatever. There's so many things to think about right now. That's the least of my worries. But that part was a little ridiculous, right? I mean, the damn spear is like 20 feet underwater.
Yeah.
Batman almost drowns to death because he gets near it. And then all of a sudden or Superman, excuse me, almost drowns to death. And then all of a sudden he can fucking fly with it at full speed.
Yeah. I mean,
That made a lot
clearly
of
it's a
sense.
problem.
I thought maybe it would have been a thing where, you got two other teammates there, right?
I thought he was going to chuck it up to
So it's
Wonder Woman.
Batman.
And
I
Wonder
thought, either Wonder Woman or Batman. I thought it was going to be hey, you got this guy who's a master at stealth.
Yeah.
Let's give him the spear who he's pretty good at wielding it because he fucking made it.
He beat
Let's give
my
it to
ass with
him.
it.
He beat my ass with it. Let's distract this giant monster. Let's have him roll up behind him and just stab him up the asshole, like right into the heart.
Yeah.
I
And
thought
like,
that would have been amazing.
that's what I was thinking too. I was like,
But instead, he just chills over in the corner. It's like, wait for it.
yeah.
Wait for it. There it is. There's a smoke grenade.
Yeah.
Done.
I mean, it
Eat
worked
it.
out perfect. And like that Wonder Woman's where she uses the lasso is awesome. But like if I was Superman, I was like, man, this does not kill two of the three people I'm working with right now.
Right.
Let's give it to one of these motherfuckers.
This makes me feel like I just got irradiated.
Yeah.
I just got 30 doses of chemotherapy. Like I'm gonna give this to the other dude that just whooped my fucking ass with it.
Yeah.
Just took me to the cleaners, man.
I'm not Superman or anything. I'm like super intelligence is clearly not one of his powers. But
Dude, I know. They're gonna have to solve that, right? They're gonna have to figure out how to get those guys better because one of the amazing scene in Avengers when they all finally figured out they needed to work together and they had Captain America flying recon above, telling people what to do, and they made it work, right? Again, you don't want to stop and think too much about that because, hey Hawkeye, clear out 40 square blocks of people. Yeah, dope, I got that.
I got it.
Yeah, it's cool, I got it. I can run really fast. Whatever. But that moment was awesome in Avengers, and they need that moment in Justice League. They need the moment where they all come together as a team and figure it out. But I wonder how they're going to do it because, for the most part, I don't know. It's gonna
Superman will probably just hit somebody really hard, and then that was it.
right, or Flash will run really fast and
Yeah.
go back through time. Like when you have characters that can fucking run back through time, it's a little hard to keep them
Grounded?
like grounded. And
Yeah.
tempered, yeah.
It is definitely
So-
hard. So like that was a problem that like, and my real problem with that is not even so much like, was it dumb? Yes. But it affects the beginning of the next movie.
Right.
Because the next, like Justice League Part 1, guess what you're going to have to write around? Guess what you're going to have to spend? And you can't just gloss over it because he's dead. And also, Clark Kent is dead.
Right.
Clark Kent just can't come back now. He didn't die in the movie or in the comics or whatever. He went missing.
But that's very interesting, right? For the first time in pretty much any, I mean, I'm sure they've done it in the comic books before. I don't read a lot of the DC comics, but like in any of the animated or other films, like they just everyone kind of just knows who everyone is in this, right? Like Lex knows who everyone is. Like he knows who Bruce Wayne's Batman, right?
This is so confusing for a lot of people. People don't know that Clark Kent was Superman. Clark Kent was just, they say, killed in the battle. Like
Right.
he was covering it and killed in the battle. But they still have to, like, guess what? Superman's gonna come back. Who is he going to come back as? Are they just gonna be like, oh, I wasn't actually dead, I was missing. Sorry, you guys had a funeral for me and had a body in the casket. It
Right.
wasn't me.
It's
Like,
it, it sounds really awkward, but you
yeah.
buried the wrong person. Look a lot like me.
When you
Or maybe,
say it out loud, it seems ridiculous.
but like, let's be honest, the Superman, the only reason why you write Superman having an alter ego is to have that unrequited love from Lois.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason why you have it there. You have it as a B story so that Clark Kent is forever in love with this person who is in love with his alter ego, and there's that conflict that arises from that situation. When you don't have that, when they're in the beginning of the movie banging it out in a bathtub, which by the way was a hot scene,
Yeah.
and Amy Adams, what's up?
Yeah.
Actually, Henry Cavill, what's up?
Yeah, dude,
Also,
it's amazing looking. It makes
Jesus,
me feel bad. I
I
come
feel
home and I'm like, ugh.
I feel like half a human being. Like when I
Yeah.
saw those scenes. But when you have those two characters who know who they are, like that, you don't really need Superman to have an alter ego. You don't, because
True.
you kind of do for Bruce Wayne because it's kind of cool and he's running a corporation, so he can't he's got to keep his wealth up and he's got to keep that persona up because people might die. But the cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows he's having sex with Lois. Everyone knows that she's the way to get to Superman. So
Yeah.
why
Everybody
does he need
figured
an
that
alter
out.
ego? They figured it out. It wasn't that hard. Every time she got into trouble, he was there. So lo and behold, and like I kind of like that because that's the biggest, the stupidest thing in the DC universe is that nobody can look at a picture of Superman and look at Clark Kent and be like they're fucking clearly the same person, you know. Whereas Batman at least is wearing a cowl, and you actually can't tell it's Ben Affleck because he's
No,
got the
you
voice
can't.
modulator, and he
Yeah.
doesn't look like him, and he's probably by the time you see him, you just see a blurred gray, and you get your head smashed through the floorboards of a warehouse, um, floor. But
The only way you could tell it's Batman is if you were like walking down Gotham and you're like, God damn, that guy's wide.
yeah,
And then you see Batman and you're like,
there's only
what
two
is that?
human beings on the planet
What
that
is
are
that, a
this wide.
5XL across?
Yeah,
His
dude,
chest is like 400 inches.
he's so big.
They'd be like, well, he's clearly Batman. He's clearly Batman.
Oh my god, I know. That was, I mean, but yeah. So I hope they don't feel the need to kind of go back with the Clark Kent character because who the fuck cares about Clark Kent?
I
Really,
mean,
does
Greg
anyone
does,
care about him?
but
What's that?
Greg does. But
Yeah, but Greg's a traditionalist, right? I don't like Superman that much. And to me, it's a wholly unbelievable character. It's an unbelievable person who has that much power and feels the need to just walk amongst normal human beings and like write news reports. Like you just wouldn't do it. Also, all those times you're writing news reports, you could be out there saving someone.
yeah,
Just FYI, especially if you can hear around the world. You could
which
be,
he clearly can because he found Lois when she was like in
if
like
you,
Bangladesh.
right, exactly.
And like he was just like,
So
oh, well, Lois is in trouble. Hold on one second, please.
yeah, exactly, right. And so if you're going to be a god and they're going to do the Justice League flying, what's the Space Fortress called? Whatever the hell
Oh,
that is.
yeah.
Tower of Awesomeness. If you're going to do that, then just have Superman have that be his home, or have him live in the Fortress of Solitude, and then call it a day, man. He's Superman. That's who he is. He doesn't need Clark Kent.
Yeah, I
Batman
completely.
needs Batman needs Bruce Wayne because every once in a while you got to go out and do a little fucking, little yay.
Yeah, you
Maybe I
got
don't
you
know.
got to enjoy your life a little bit.
He's got to go party a little bit, but like
So
Superman can't get drunk. Who cares?
we'll end it on one more thing. I
Sure.
want you to rank your Batmans all time
Batman as the
as like
actor.
actors. Yeah,
Okay, I have to think
I
about
know
this. Quite a few.
Keaton
Keaton's
is
number one.
great. And so Keaton's still number one over Ben.
Keaton's still number one. Yeah,
I think Ben is number one for me now. I like Keaton as a second.
I gotta go Keaton just because that movie is still amazing to me. It's on my
It
Netflix
changed your
queue.
life, right?
I might actually watch it tonight. Yeah, it's I loved it, and it's actually one of the reasons I love Keaton is because I was one of the people when I was a kid. I was 9 years old. I was like, this is the stupidest. The guy that played Mr. Mom cannot be Batman, and he proved me wrong.
You want to get crazy?
Like, oh, let's get crazy.
So good.
But in the suit, I like him as Batman, right? In the
Hmm.
suit, he still has that sort of humor, and that's a lot of people always have a problem with the '89 Batman. Like, it's too campy, it's too cheesy. I'm like, that was the point of it. It was supposed to be kind of twisted and fucked up and Danny Elfman-esque, right? Where you're not quite sure if you're supposed to be laughing or like terrified at this
That's a
moment.
little weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird, but that's his style, right? And Keaton was just such a great choice for that style. It couldn't have been anyone that took the role serious, like 100% seriously.
Hmm.
But Keaton does his best. So I think Keaton still is my number one, simply because he's Batman. Um, I got to give it to Ben Affleck as number 2.
Interesting.
And
Very
it's
interesting.
weird to say. And my wife
I love
never
this, by the way,
forgive me
because
for
I was
saying
like
this.
all about Ben Affleck being Batman. I was like, fuck yeah, I love that guy. He's awesome. He was great in the town. He'll get yacked, and you know.
Dude, he got it. Jesus
Oh
Christ.
man.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was entertained when he was Bruce Wayne. I liked he actually came off as, he did the charming kind of bumbling Bruce Wayne, like playboy, I'm a little drunk, where's the bathroom? I think he did it pretty well. I liked his chemistry with Gal Gadot, and like when he was Batman, like he nailed for me the fact that he really nailed that it was Batman playing Bruce Wayne, not Bruce Wayne
Yes.
playing Batman.
Yeah.
And I think that for that he gets the number 2 spot. And then you got to give Bale a really close third.
I don't like Bale. I've been very vocal. Like I really don't like Bale at all. I think every scene that Bale is in makes the scene weaker. So like I think that like Joker is a phenomenal, like Dark Knight is like an amazing movie, and I can't really argue that. But I always argue that like Batman Begins is cool, it's good, and that like Rises is an abomination and doesn't make any sense and it's bad. But like Dark Knight every scene the Joker is in is great, and if it's a scene with Joker and Christian Bale, the scene is worse because of Christian Bale.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard when you have that character, especially since I mean Heath Ledger's character. Like
Performance of a lifetime.
it was impossible to like.
Yeah.
Who the fuck were you gonna put across from that?
Yeah.
And have like if you put Ben Affleck across from that, and it would have been the same result, unfortunately. And that's not a fault of Ben Affleck's. It's just it just shows you the strength of how amazing Heath Ledger was in that role. But I liked Bale for Batman Begins. I really liked Batman Begins, and I really liked his interpretation of it in that film. I just feel like at a certain point, you're right. Like, we saw him too much in the light. We saw him too much in the suit. It just, at a certain point, you got that it was just a dude running around in a suit, and that's for me.
That's not what Batman is.
That's not what Batman is.
Yeah.
For me, Batman is really a symbol of like striking terror to the hearts of criminals, and there's no better way to do that than crawling along the fucking ceiling.
Batman should be
like,
borderline horror.
People. Yeah, which that first couple scenes were. So I was like, you know what, Ben, you nailed it, man. You got me out. I'm on board with you. And then I really don't. I mean, are we talking Kevin Conroy? Can I bring him in?
You can bring him in.
He's probably number 2, actually.
He's probably number 1 for me.
Yeah, if we're allowing him, he's going to have to be number 1.
I just wanted to see where
the voice of Batman.
we could stop there because I just wanted to see where you're. If Keaton, I mean, because
good. I'm like, please don't make me choose between Val Kilmer and George Clooney.
George Clooney. It's clearly George Clooney.
It would have to be George Clooney.
Because he's George Clooney.
Yeah,
not a great Batman, but I mean, I just enjoy George Clooney Batman. Generally.
But he will admit that he's a terrible Batman.
Yeah, he is. He said it before.
He's the worst.
All right, guys. So there you have it. We just talked about Batman vs Superman for about an hour. I liked it. Nick liked it. America hated it. Well, actually, a lot of people are liking it. A lot of critics. It got panned and critics fucking destroyed it. But if you like DC Comics, you owe it to yourself. And if you're going to see Justice League, which, let's be honest, you guys can complain and bitch and moan, but you're going to go see Justice League.
You're going to go see Justice League.
You know you are. Just like everybody's like, I'm not going to see Batman vs Superman. It's doing $300 million in its opening weekend. Guess what? People are going to see it. This movie is a success. No one, Warner Brothers is not going to look at this and be like, "Oh shucks."
Yeah, we screwed up. Let's pull the plug on the rest of the movie. No, they're going full steam ahead after this. Trust me.
100%. Nick, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody should go follow Nick. On Twitter. He's at Nick_Scarpino. Go to kindoffunny.com. Check out all their videos there. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing in life or in my podcasting or anything like that if it wasn't for Nick and the rest of the guys at kind of funny. So thank you for that. And if you're just tuning in, because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people watching this that don't normally watch my content, make sure you guys go to nerdsonline.com. Nerds is spelled with a K. And check out some of our stuff. We have a podcast that has been quoted as pretty good by one Kevin Coella. So, glowing recommendation. Pretty good. We should have a new episode up this week where we talk a little bit more about Batman v Superman. And most surprising thing about Batman v Superman for me was how many people laughed at the Ghostbusters trailer.
Oh, wow.
People were laughing hard, too. Like stomach laughs. And
that movie's going to open.
What is happening here?
It's going to sell, man. It sucks, but that's what Ghostbusters has to be this day and age. It's got to be a Paul Feig film. It's got to be
dubstep.
Melissa McCartney and Kristen Wiig doing their banter back and forth where they don't know who's going to say "Let's go." That's the movie.
That was a little funny. I laughed a little.
I'm gonna watch. You know what? I'm gonna
watch it too.
I'm probably gonna laugh.
Yep.
And it's not going to be the Ghostbusters that I knew, but guess what? That was made when I was like 6. So
I wasn't alive yet. I wouldn't be alive for many years, actually.
I love those films. They will always have a special place in my heart. But I don't think that film I don't think if you made that film shot for shot remake, I just don't think it would work.
No.
You can't do it without. I mean, that film, the strength of Ghostbusters was Bill Murray. Like, come
I
on.
agree. I
You
agree.
can't have Bill Murray. You can't have Ghostbusters.
But anyway, thank you guys very much for tuning in, and as always, good game, guys.